This is Radio Hereford FC, the home of the Bulls.
Hello and welcome back to the latest edition of the Bullscast with me, George Holloway. This week on the pod, we're looking back at Hereford's win over Leamington in the National League North. We'll break down where the game was won and lost and discuss the impact of Lawson D'Ath's return to the Bulls midfield. Hereford are back in action this Saturday after a weekend off as they take on league leaders South Shields, and we'll look at the reasons behind their fast start and where the Bulls may be able to cause them some problems. I'm joined by the newest member of Radio Hereford FC's team, Aaron Viles. Aaron, first of all, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Well, thank you very much for having me along, George. It's an absolute pleasure. First season covering Hereford as well, so nice to have a little bit of an in-depth discussion, talking all things Bulls and the National League North. So, yeah, it's great to be on, mate, and hope that you're having a nice day too.
Well, it's brilliant to have you here, Aaron. Thanks for joining me. Let's get into it then. It's been over a week now since Hereford secured a well-earned 2-1 win at Leamington. And given their record at the new Windmill Ground, Aaron, it was a great way to bounce back from a disappointing FA Cup exit a few days prior.
It certainly was, since we had that discussion prior to the recording, didn't we, George? It's a tough place to go, is the new Windmill Ground, and Hereford in recent years have not had a good record there. So to get the results, and yes, we'll talk about the goals in just a second. I mean, the second one wasn't exactly the most usual of goals, shall we say, coming off the outstretched left leg of the Leamington defender Archie Crowther, but a win is a win. And the fact is, Hereford now are beginning to stretch this run of games in the league. It's 5 unbeaten now, which includes 3 wins and 2 draws. So, yes, it was scrappy at times, but at the end of the day, it's 3 points in the bank. It puts the Bulls in a better position. And as we said, going to a place where in recent seasons things haven't quite gone to plan, to get a result there in Leamington, I think is a big confidence boost.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's Hereford's first win at Leamington since October 2019, when goals from Peter Vincenti and Josh Gowling earned Russell Slade's side all 3 points. It was the breaks who hit the front first, though, when Tim Berridge turned in and fired past Theo Richardson with 35 minutes on the clock. But it was against the run of play, Aaron.
It was. But I just wanted to talk about the goal because there's 2 schools of thinking you can approach to this. And the first one that I want to take is from the striker's perspective, because it's a really nice finish. It's a tight, acute angle. It's a difficult shot to hit. And yes, the goalkeeping from Theo Richardson could have been better. He was absolutely livid with himself. Every goalkeeper is. I've been beaten at my near post. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. But at the end of the day, you have to tip your cap sometimes and just go, you know what? It's a really nice finish. And yes, it was against the run of play, but the way in which Hereford bounced back was very nice. So it was one of those almost catalysts, wasn't it? The game at that stage, I think, was in Hereford's favour. Then they go on the back foot. And after a goal like that, it's all about the character that a team shows. And I think that in the second half especially, the Bulls did an absolutely fantastic job. And as we'll touch upon, scored 2 goals and came away with the win.
The Bulls continued to show promise going forwards and grabbed the equaliser from the spot in first half added time when Ewan Williams brought down Ilani Edwards. As clear a penalty as you'll see all season, Aaron?
100%. Yeah, it really was. I don't think we'll need any second looks or VAR as a result of that. It was a stonewall penalty and very nicely put away.
Yeah, Romain Campbell now with 3 goals in the National League North for this season. Hereford, as you say, Aaron, carried that momentum with them into the second half and caused Leamington a lot of problems on the counter.
Yeah, they did. And to be honest, I want to touch upon Ilani Edwards, if I may, because the game that I commentated alongside Keith earlier on in the season, the away game against Buxton, he looked really lively. And there's still areas of his game which I think can improve. But in terms of the actual character of the youngster, I think he's brilliant. I think he's showing plenty of promise. I think he's showing some glimmers and sparks of potential in that midfield, and he works his absolute socks off. So, of course, he was the man who won the penalty. And I think in the second half, again, continued to go through the motions, looked a lot more confident. And yeah, the midfield in the end was a major part behind the Bulls' victory. So, no, I think Alani Edwards has been a very shrewd acquisition. And then, of course, with the second goal, well, that came from the midfield and, well, was finished off by a rather unlikely source, wasn't it? Aaron Skinner.
Yeah, absolutely. It came 40 minutes from time when Archie Crowther turned into his own net. Perhaps a touch fortunate, but also a result of the pressure they had put on Leamington.
It was. And look, if you look back at the defending there, it wasn't the best, was it, from the breaks? Because Aaron Skinner goes on the overlap and two Leamington defenders stay on the man and nobody picks him up at all. So it was good awareness to lay the pass to him in the first place. With regards to the actual finish, whether or not he was going for goal or if it was one of those almost misdirected passes across the face, which in the end has gone off the boot of Crowther. Look, at the end of the day, it went in. And it was unlikely. I'm going to be honest. I wasn't expecting Aaron Skinner to be the man to be the catalyst in that at all, but I think it was deserved.
And having watched National League and National League North football now, Aaron, how important is it to have players like Alani Edwards who provide athleticism and power to get you up the pitch?
Oh, massive. Absolutely huge. They're a point of difference. And look, this is the great thing about both the National League and the National League North and South, of course. I'll include that in the conversation. It gives these young guys an opportunity. And a look at Alani Edwards. He's hungry. You can see he's determined to prove a point. And in a league where at times it does lack a little bit of creativity, when you have got those bright spots, those bright sparks, those enterprising players who can just create a little bit of dynamism in the midfield, I think it's absolutely huge. So, as I said, I think he's been a fine acquisition and long may it continue. I think he's got a big role to play in this Hereford side heading into the rest of this season.
And alongside Sam Osborne and Lawson D'Ath, as you say, Aaron, that midfield played a pivotal role in Hereford getting the 3 points. And it was Osborne's cross that led to Crowther's mistake.
It was indeed, yeah. Nice cross, wasn't it, in the end as well from Sam Osborne. He was another one who showed some nice little glimmers against Buxton. And it's just a case, in my opinion, of the midfield clicking now. The fact is, it's been a few games. We're no longer in early season. It's not the first or second encounter of the campaign. There is quite a youthful core to this Hereford midfield, especially when Lawson wasn't in there. He gives you plenty of control and experience. Gus Mafuta as well has been on the sidelines. So it has taken time. But I think in that Leamington match with Osborne and Edwards' performances, as I said, they're two massive, massive bright spots and positives to take away from that win.
Leamington didn't go down without a fight, and Ewan Williams forced Richardson to produce a fine save on 80 minutes.
He certainly did. I think he's a really good goalkeeper. I really do. I think with Theo Richardson, I'm not sure if Keith told you the story, George, but at one point he was actually very highly touted at Manchester United. So Jose Mourinho wanted him in and around the senior side as the third choice goalkeeper, not exactly the backup or the starting GK, but he wanted him in the mix because of his attitude, his skills, and he pulls off some wonderful saves. And I know there's some people who go, well, he's a goalkeeper. What do you mean he pulls off good saves? That's his job. But he just gets into good positions. And as I said, he would have been let down by the opening goal because a goalie never likes to be beaten at the near post. But a save like that at a crucial juncture of the game is massive. And it shows a lot about his character and his courage as a goalkeeper.
And coming from full-time filed in the National League, when Hereford re-signed him in the summer, that's kind of what you're hoping to get from Richardson to produce in the big moments.
Oh, 100%. And it goes back to attitude. I think he's a very confident goalkeeper. I really do. I think he's one of the best in the league in that department. And of course, at times, that can also lead to a goalkeeper's downfall if you get a little bit too overconfident. But he's got the skills. He's got the attitude. And as we've just mentioned, he pulled off a great save. So again, that gives you a lot of boost and a lot of confidence to take into the next game. And in that next game, which we'll touch upon, he might be busy against South Shields, who have had an unbelievable start to the season. So yeah, I think the way in which he's adapted to that change, of course, going from full-time with AFC Fylde in the 5th tier to now coming down to the 6th tier with Hereford, ironically, where AFC Fylde also now find themselves. That is a change, but I think he's done a good job. And again, I think he's someone who you can build off of heading into the rest of this league season.
A name we've already mentioned is Lawson D'Ath, who missed the 2 FA Cup ties against Hemel due to a groin injury. How much of a difference did it make to have him back in the heart of that midfield?
Huge. And it comes back to experience. So, in fact, I've watched the post-match interview from that Leamington game that Toby conducted for Hereford. And Lawson himself said it was all about control in the midfield because he is a cool and calm customer. I always look at him as a very incisive passer as well. He's got a very good timing of the game. He's got good awareness and strong vision. So I think in that capacity, he was a massive, massive loss, wasn't he, for the 2 FA Cup games? And you could see that, especially against Hemel, there was just lacking that little bit of almost wisdom in the midfield and experience. It felt like at times Hereford's had control of the game, but couldn't quite have that final touch, the final instinct to take them home. And I feel like a midfielder of Lawson D'Ath's capabilities, experience, he's 32 years old, he's one of the older players in that midfield core. I do feel like he would have had a big impact, to be completely honest. So having him back is brilliant. And alongside those youngsters, your Sam Osborne, Trelawney Edwards, for example, I think when you combine all of that together with Lawson as the talisman, as I said, I think there's a lot of potential in that midfield group.
And perhaps a big reason as to why Hereford was so effective on the counter-attack. You mentioned his incisive passing. Being able to have a player that can break lines and get you up the pitch fast and effectively is crucial in that department.
It certainly is. And we saw that actually. I think Lawson D'Ath had a part to play in it. There was a passage of play, I think around 50 minutes in, where within 4 passes, Hereford had gone from just outside their own box into Leamington's box. It was a wonderful, wonderful bit of passing. And again, it just comes down to vision. It comes down to awareness. And if you've got players who can break down those lines, allow for guys to get in behind, as we saw with Aaron Skinner on the overlap, it opens up a completely different avenue for your attacking options. So in that regard, I do think that he plays a massive role. And against South Shields, we'll touch upon this in more detail soon, but you simply have to have players like that. I mean, they are the best defence in the league. So Lawson's going to play a huge, huge pillar in that side of the game. And then, of course, with regards to the attackers, having those guys with extra pace to run onto that is going to be absolutely crucial as well.
And with the free weekend just gone, Aaron, because of Hereford exiting the FA Cup, getting that win against Leamington and then getting time on the training field, all in all, it's a pretty good afternoon's work.
Oh, 100%. But it's a weird thing, isn't it? The bye week, as you'd put it, when you don't have that game, because it can go one of 2 ways. You either lose the momentum because, aside from the FA Cup, the league campaign has slowly but surely been gathering a little bit of pace. We touched upon it before, George, but 3 wins and 2 draws in the last 5 matches, far, far better than what we saw in the first couple. Hopefully, it will just be a case of that extra resets means the group are nice and fresh. But we do see it all the time in sport. I say this as a cricket commentator. The amount of times that you see teams having games off and it negatively impacts them is a lot higher than you'd think. So we hope that it's the former and that the boys come into this still fresh, still full of plenty of confidence. But this is a real, real challenge here. South Shields have been by far and away the best team in the entire division. They've conceded 4 goals in 10 games. The next lowest is 10, and that's Scarborough, who sit in second place. So this is a completely different kettle of fish, and Hereford, from minute 1, are really going to have to apply the pressure and up the ante on the Mariners.
The National League North returns this weekend, and here's a rundown of the fixtures coming up. Telford United host second place Scarborough Athletic, Buxton versus Chorley, Kings Lynn versus Fylde, Leamington are hosting Darlington, while Macclesfield play Curzon Ashton. Oxford City are at home to Southport. There's a huge game down at the bottom as Peterborough Sports play Alfreton. Radcliffe play Bedford Town, Spennymoor are at home to Merthyr, while Worksop play Marine. And there's a huge game at the Diva Stadium as well, as Chester host a Kidderminster side that could really do with a result after they lost 5-1 at home to Radcliffe. Hereford face their toughest assignment yet this Saturday as they travel the 250 plus miles to face league leaders South Shields, who are yet to be beaten this season. Manager Elliot Dickman paid the price for a disappointing campaign last season and was replaced by former Gateshead assistant Ian Watson in May. He couldn't have wished for a better start to his time in charge, Aaron. What makes his side so difficult to play against?
The defence. It's as simple as that. And it comes from, in my opinion, and this is just an opinion, of course, but Robbie Tinkler. I think he's had a huge impact on that back line. He's captaining the side. Again, a little bit like that conversation with Lawson D'Ath and Hereford's midfield. He is the talisman of that defensive core for South Shields. He marshals them. If you watch the highlights, he's constantly in communication with the youngsters. The likes of Sykes and Bainbridge, for example, getting them into the right positions. And it always helps, as we spoke about with Theo Richardson being a good goalkeeper, when you've got Jasper Sheikh pulling off these world-class saves, game in, game out. He had one at the weekends against Spalding, where I don't even know how he got across to it, but he just managed to deflect it past the right-hand side of his goal. I think for me, it goes back to a very cliche thing, but attack wins your games and defence wins your titles. And as a unit, when you've conceded 4 goals in 10 games, 2 of which came early season against Buxton, and we may touch upon those in due course, that for me is their real strength. And then, as if that wasn't enough, you've got creativity in the midfield with Caden Kelly, and you've got 2 very good forwards in Blackett and Kedwin Scott. So, all things considered, I think that South Shields look brilliant this season. It's still early doors, things can change, but I think that defence for me, George, is where they really stand out head and shoulders amongst everybody else in the National League North.
As you mentioned earlier, they've won their last 5 matches in all competitions and 7 of their last 8 at home. The only one they've dropped points at home to is Buxton, that 2-2 draw. Pretty formidable at the First Cloud Arena. Paul Blackett continues to score goals and has netted 7 in his first 10 league matches this season. And he scored a great bicycle kick against Spalding at the weekend in the FA Cup. He's a player Aaron Hereford can't afford to give time and space to.
No, you can't. And it comes back to quality. He is a natural goal scorer, and we've seen that. He's already in the top 5, top 6, isn't he, with regards to overall goal scorers and strikers in the division this season. So, look, he is a very sharp customer. You mentioned about the acrobatics. He's someone who can just almost put on those afterburners and take you by surprise with pace and those more athletic finishes. So, for me, he is the danger man, but don't rule out the likes of Caden Kelly and Kedwin Scott. I mean, Kedwin Scott himself has got 5 goals. So it just goes back to the wider conversation of South Shields that, yes, their talisman up front is Blackett, but they've got multiple options. And that is the great thing. And yeah, I do think there'll be a real handful for that Hereford back line in this weekend's game.
When South Shields came up a couple of years ago, many expected them to be pushing for promotion from the off, given that they are financially backed quite heavily and they are a full-time team. This is maybe where people expect them to be in the National League North. But having covered the National League yourself, how difficult is it, even with money, to compete?
Massive. It really is. It's very difficult. So I've been covering Solihull Moors now for 2 seasons. And, for example, AFC Fylde would have been one of those sides who came up, don't quite necessarily have the same level of financial backing of South Shields, but again, they're a side who many thought would do pretty well. Dorking Wanderers as well. I mean, that was a great fairy tale with them coming up, but in the end, those 2 sides went down. It's so competitive at the moment. And I don't know about you, George, but having covered quite a bit of non-league football, it feels like there's a lot of inconsistency from year to year. That's the other thing. So Solihull are a great example of this. They've gone from being a penalty kick away from League 2 to not being anywhere near as competitive as anybody thought they would be this season. I mean, they don't look like promotion favourites at all. If anything, they might be towards the other ends of the table. So I think for sides to dominate in the National League North and the National League South, yes, celebrate. By all means, celebrate. But don't get carried away, because that step up from the 6th tier to the 5th tier is a heck of a lot different than people think it is. You might go, well, it's still non-league. Teams, they're not exactly going into League Two. They're not full-time professional, but the standard goes up by 1. And it's that standard, it's that difference. If teams rest on their laurels and don't recruit well, that tends to be the problem. And sides very quickly head straight back down.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, it's absolutely brutal, not only in the 5th tier, but also the 6th tier. And the inconsistency from week to week, we see sides, promotion favourites beating each other all the time. It's really hard to predict. So the case for Hereford then, Aaron, this Saturday, where are the areas that the Bulls can get at South Shields?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? But I think for me, it comes from that midfield. They've got to win the midfield battle first and foremost, because you don't want to give South Shields too much respect. And I go back to that Buxton game because very early doors in that first half, Buxton pressed, and they pressed very high. They won those battles in midfield. And in the end, that increased pressure led to the goals. They were 2 mistakes in a way. So the first one, Jasper Sheikh practically just passed it to Ty Sojay and he finished it off. And then the second one, Sheikh pulled off a wonderful save high to his right, but they didn't mark Sojay well enough. And on the rebound, he just nods it in. So that for me is the first thing. You've got to press and you've got to win the midfield battle. If you can do that, put them under pressure, get those overlapping runs in, maybe have those venturing surges forward by the likes of Osborne and Edwards just to take South Shields out of their shape. That for me is the first area for Hereford. That is where they've got to dominate. And if they don't, I think they'll be in trouble. The second one, of course, is keeping Paul Blackett quiet, which is an awful lot easier said than done. But then again, everybody can have an off game, and Hereford just have to hope that this is South Shields. The fact is, it might be a case of almost double teaming him at some points, not allowing him to have that freedom, that space to venture forward, and just try and keep him quiet. The other person, though, who I'm a little bit wary of is Caden Kelly. Caden Kelly, I think, goes under the radar with South Shields. And he's another one who, he just has that extra gear. He's very creative. He's someone with wonderful skills. He's someone who can shoot with both feet. So that's something for defenders to be very wary of straight away. And I feel like if he also gets into the game too much, he's going to put Richardson under a lot of pressure. So that for me would be my 2 key points. I think the first one is absolutely vital. I think if Hereford lose the midfield battle, they allow South Shields to maintain that shape and dominate proceedings at home where they've been very good. I mean, that game against Buxton is the only time they've dropped points at home this season. They've won every other game aside from that. So, yeah, that for me, the midfield is number 1. Number 2, which would be great, a lot easier said here chatting on a podcast as opposed to actually being out there. But yeah, you've got to keep the likes of Blackett, Kelly, and of course, the aforementioned Kedwin Scott nice and quiet.
And will mental resilience maybe come into this as well, Aaron? Going to the league leaders, if Hereford were to fall behind fairly early on in the match, how important is it not to let the game run away from you?
Absolutely massive. It really is. I mean, that's another key area because no team wants to concede early doors, but it's even worse when you're playing the league leaders who are dominant at home and a team who have only conceded 4 goals in 10 matches. That would be very, very difficult. So in an ideal world, you get the first goal, a little bit like Buxton did. But the issue with Buxton in that particular game, they let it slip. So they went 2 goals up. Then there was the red card. Max Bardell got sent off and everything just changed. And you could see in the second half, they gave South Shields far too much respect. If you drop off and you don't maintain that high press, they've got the quality. They've got the calibre and standard of players to basically run you off the field. So huge. It's absolutely vital that Hereford show that mental resilience. But that comes even if you don't concede. You've got to go into this game and just disregard that table completely. The fact is, Hereford themselves are a side in form. 5 games unbeaten in the league, and yes, the FA Cup didn't go to plan, but that in itself is impressive. It was a difficult start to the campaign, and they've bounced back very admirably. And I don't think actually we've seen the next gear that Hereford have got in this league season either. So I think they've just got to go into this game, regardless of what happens in the first 10 minutes. That, for me, is the first milestone of the game. Dominate proceedings, get a few shots at Jasper Sheikh, and if you go down early, keep fighting, keep scrapping, win those midfield duels, and hopefully go on to win the game. We saw that resilience, that resolve against Leamington. There's no reason why they can't do it if it was to happen.
If you do get a result at the place like South Shields, Aaron, how important can it be for the rest of the season, that the confidence booster and the momentum that it can give you?
Monumental. Absolutely monumental. It's huge. To go to South Shields, who are the only unbeaten side in the league right now. They've not lost a single game. If you are that first team to notch up that first L in their column, you walk around on top of the world. And let's not forget as well that Hereford's have got a Tuesday night game coming up against AFC Telford. So even heading into that game, you go, well, hang on. We've now stretched our unbeaten streak to 6. We've beaten the league leaders. Let's make it 7. Why not? And let's try and utilise that as a springboard. On the flip side of that, though, it can also have the other impact, which if you do beat the league leaders, and this is a big if because South Shields are a very good outfit. This isn't just tossing them aside by any stretch, but if you do beat the league leaders on their home grounds, it goes back to what we said about not resting on your laurels. That can also have a detrimental effect of overconfidence and maybe your ego gets in the way. So, of course, the first aspect of that, try and beat South Shields. I think that is the most important bit. But with regards to the rest of the season, if they were to get a result there, it's massive. It's absolutely huge. And it could be the catalyst for Hereford to really plough on into that top 10.
So my final question for you, Aaron, how do you see it going?
Oh, it's a tough one, isn't it? Look, I know this is a Hereford platform and I really, really want the Bulls to do well, but I think it is going to be tough. I think we'll get a goal, first and foremost. I really do back Hereford in that capacity, and I think it'll be Remay Campbell to score it, but I'll go 2-2. So I'll sit very firmly on the fence, but I back Hereford. I really do. I back Hereford to go out there and get a result. It's just whether or not that result can be a win against such a terrific defence.
Aaron, thank you so much for your time.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, mate. Honestly, it's been a great way to spend the last 25, 30 minutes. Of course, wishing the boys all the very best of luck, not just heading into that South Shields game, but also into that game against Telford on that Tuesday night.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bullscast. Don't forget to give us a review and follow if you enjoyed it, and we'll be back next week to review all of the latest action from Hereford FC. Until then, it's bye for now.
This is Radio Hereford FC, the home of the Bulls.